What's up, guys? Zeenigami here, and I have come here to give you a ton of information about elemental reactions and how they actually work. Excuse me, Amber, I am talking right now! Thank you, Amber. God damn. Anyways, elemental reactions in Genshin Impact, you might already know that if you use one element and then you hit it with another element, a reaction happens and boom, damage usually occurs. Cool. But the way that the damage happens and how much damage actually is dealt is often just chalked up to elemental mastery increases your damage, which is true, but depending on the reaction, there actually is a lot of difference in how valuable elemental mastery is compared to how valuable just straight up attack on a character is. I have here a brand new graphic that I spent a lot of time working on stream, so thank you for people on stream on Twitch who are very patient. I am going to have to shut you up, Amber. With this chart, you can see here I'm covering a bunch of the elemental reactions that are in the game. There are the elements that don't apply any debuffs that are Anemo, Geo, and Dendro. Dendro obviously is barely used in the game. Geo creates crystals, which gives you shields based on whatever debuff element it hits, and Anemo creates a swirl. The amount of damage that Anemo deals in that swirl is completely based, first of all, off on the character's level. So the higher the Anemo character that is triggering the swirl, the more swirl damage is going to be dealt. The attack of the Anemo character the attack of the Anemo character doesn't matter at all. Elemental mastery is the only way to increase swirl damage. You cannot get Anemo percent damage gear on. You cannot put whatever the element that you're swirling. So if you have a fire debuff on a character or a pyro debuff on a character and you swirl that pyro damage to deal pyro damage everywhere, putting pyro percent gear on your Anemo character will not increase that swirl damage. So the only way to increase swirl damage is through elemental mastery. The most useful thing about swirl being it deals a very large AoE of that new element that then can trigger more elemental reactions, which is why Venti plus basically anybody is so strong. Since Venti's ultimate pulls them all into a single spot, they just start dealing damage to everybody, and it's just a fireworks display of damage all over the place when you use Venti's ultimate. Now, the most interesting thing that I want to share is the first thing on this graph here, where if you have a Pyro reaction with either Pyro Hydro or Pyro Cryo, the amount of damage that reaction deals is based on the attack damage that triggers the reaction. So let's, for example, look at fire and water, Pyro Hydro. If you have a Pyro attack hitting a Hydro debuff, the Pyro attack deals 1.5 times that attack damage in total. And if you have a Hydro attack hitting a Pyro debuff, that then deals 2 times damage. And let's go over to Genshin and see that in action. So I have a Hilly Trail heal that I've been beating up for ages. First of all, I'm going to burn off his shield because his shield is just going to make this a little more difficult. So let's get rid of his shield here. I have my characters with no gear on. You can see here I've got low attack, no elemental mastery. Low attack, no elemental mastery on any of my characters. I guess my official actually has a little bit of attack, but no elemental mastery on anybody here for all of these purposes. No gear, no elemental reactions, a moderate or actually a really bad weapon. So we are going to deal Pyro and Hydro damage. I told you earlier, and based off of my chart, that if you deal Pyro first, then Hydro, the Hydro attack will then deal double damage. And if you deal Hydro first, then Pyro, that Pyro attack is going to be multiplied by 1.5 times. So if we look at me shooting with Amber's bow, it deals 63 damage. 63. So we're going to wait for this. Actually, I'll just vaporize it and make it go away. And I waited too long, so we put his shield up. So since that dealt 63 damage, if we deal Hydro first and then Pyro after that, we should expect for it to deal 1.5 times 63 damage. And that is exactly what we're going to see. So we're going to get wet, and then we're going to shoot it. And that is 95 damage. Boom, 1.5 times 63. perfect. And we're going to do this in the opposite order. We're going to make him fiery. And then we're going to hit him with Barbara's attack, which hit for 59 there. So half of 59 is what her base attack should be, which is going to be about 29. And you'll see there, 29 damage. Exactly. Now, the most interesting thing about this is since it is a multiplier on the attack that actually triggers this damage, if we do a stronger damaging attack, like Barbara's charged attack damage, which you can see here deals, he's got a shield up. But let's get rid of that. So it's just a straight up modifier on these attacks that are triggering the reaction, unlike the reactions that are involving electricity or involving swirl. Since swirl is not affected by attack damage at all, a weak sucrose attack versus a sucrose ultimate all deals the same amount of swirl damage. Here I'm going to set him on fire. I am gonna miss. I'm gonna set him on fire, and then we're gonna hit him with the charge Barbara attack, which now deals 260 damage, which is double its basic attack, which is 130, which is exactly what we see. So what this tells us is that if you're using a Hydro Pyro combination, you can actually just put all of your stats into just raising their attack value instead of having to worry too much about Elemental Mastery. Elemental Mastery is still very useful since that increases that element's entire reaction damage. If you have 50% Elemental Mastery, you're going to increase all of those reactions by 50%, but you don't have to go that deep into it in order to get all of that extra bonus. This is most interesting on characters like Diluc, who can just put a lot of points into attack, get high basic attacks, but also still deal a lot of damage off of their reactions. So Hydro and Pyro, if a Hydro attack hits a Pyro, that's 1.5. If Hydro hits Pyro, that's 2 times. Same thing for Cryo and Pyro. If a Cryo attack hits a Pyro character or a Pyro debuff, it deals 1.5 times that attack. If a Pyro hits a Cryo, it deals 2 times attack. Freeze duration is a little bit funny, and freeze duration is very interesting because what I'm going to show you is that freeze actually depends on, I think, the level of the character that is triggering the actual effect, but freeze also does this really wild thing where freeze lasts for a really long time if you're dealing damage to a character who is naturally wet versus wet from a character, which is the only time we see this happen. None of the other elemental reactions depend on how the character gets the debuff. So for any of our elemental reactions, if you're triggering fire on water, fire on ice, whatever it is, it doesn't matter how they got that debuff in the first place as long as they have it. Except for Cryo, for some reason. Cryo just actually cares about where the water source comes from. So I'm going to put Kaya on my team here. And my Hilichurl, who I've been playing with. Hey Hilichurl, can you pay attention to me? Hilichurl. We're going to, I don't know, burn his shield. Because why not? I'm going to do a few things. First, I'm going to give him Cryo. And I'm going to walk him into the water. And you'll see here, it's a very, very short freeze. Pretty short freeze. But if he's in the water and I freeze him, this is a very long freeze. And you might think, oh, it's because of the ice on the floor that's making this freeze last super long. But actually, if I just walk him in the water and then walk him over here, if you pay attention to the cooldown on Kaya's E, I'm gonna completely whiff, so we're gonna do it again. So if you pay attention to the cooldown on Kaya's E as I bring him out of the water and then freeze him, it's gonna last all the way until 2.5 seconds left. Oh, nope. Basically 1 second left on Kaya's E before he unfreezes. But if I wet him with Barbara, he's now wet from Barbara, and I freeze him, the freeze is actually pretty short. Less than half the duration. And the other way around, freezing then Barbara is a longer freeze. And I think this is because the freeze is based on the character level. I can't completely confirm it, Since my Barbara and my Kayas are so wildly different levels, I got a level 59 Barbara versus a level 14 Kaya. If they were similar levels, then we'd be able to tell, oh, the freeze is about the same duration. But as far as I can tell, freeze is based off of the level of the character who triggers the reaction, just like all the Electro reactions, except whenever world water is involved. And that includes rain, that includes oceans and rivers. It's just really weird how world water just completely messes up what you'd expect a freeze to do. And then the last few bits of this chart is how Electro deals damage. So Electro, unlike how Pyro deals reactions, Electro actually, all of the Electro reactions are based off of character levels only. So the attack values involved in either the Electro, the Pyro, the Hydro, or the Cryo characters do not matter in these reactions. So if you have an Electro character hitting Ice, an Ice character hitting Electro, if they're the same level, they're going to deal the same amount of damage. And so we can go over to my Fischl and my Barbara, and we're going to do this. I'm not going to shoot this guy because I'm going to go back to the Hilly Trail that we've been beating up for ages, because it's going to not kill this Hilly Trail, and that's why I've been beating him up. So I appreciate him being my punching bag for the last like 3 hours here. So first we're gonna get rid of the shield. I'm gonna burn away his shield. And then we're going to apply wet and wet and Electro to him in opposite orders, knowing that Barbara and Fischl are the same level. So we're gonna wet first, and then we're going to shoot it to deal 509 damage. There it is, that second number, 509 twice. And then electric, then water to deal 509 damage again. Which this one you can pop it twice. So the difference in the water electric is that you have to actually pop the electric the second time if you do water second, or if you do electric, it automatically triggers the second time immediately right after that. Otherwise, that reaction and every reaction with electric actually is just based off of the character levels. And that's it. Which is pretty interesting. I'm going to have this chart here. I'm going to have this chart in the link in the video description down below. Please use it. Let people know about it. I've been Zeenigami, guys. I'm going to go into the combat of Genshin Impact a lot more. There's a lot of tips that I have for you guys about combat that are going to help you out a lot, but here's just a video that goes over all the elemental reactions and how damage is calculated. So once again, in short, there are elemental reactions that matter off of the attack that triggers it, and then there are elemental reactions that don't matter at all what the attack is that triggers the attack. Elemental Mastery increases all damage of all of these elemental reactions, and percent elemental damage has no effect on elemental reactions at all. I've been Zeenigami. Thank you so much for watching. Y'all stay beautiful.